area that I focus in is anything that has to do with small business clients and the ecosystem that revolves around it, which includes payroll. And so today is really exciting because there's brand new payroll offerings that are available in our QuickBooks ecosystem. The other thing that I do is the Appy Hour, and that's all about other things that are related to the QuickBooks ecosystem. So if you want to check out other things that are going on, then you can definitely look that up. Today's training qualifies for CPE. So if you are attending the entire session and you answer your polling questions, then you will be eligible for CPE. And whatever email address that you used to register will be the same email address that the certificate will be sent to. The other thing is who is really ideal candidate for this particular training? And what I would say is somebody who is already using QuickBooks Online. So as a pro advisor, you are actively serving clients inside of QuickBooks Online. So at least a couple of clients. And then the other thing that I would suggest doing is either have somebody who is interested in payroll, or maybe you're already serving one payroll client. And so you want to learn more about how does payroll get started? So which subscription level should you choose? And how do you activate the subscription and maybe pull some reports? So what are some of those things that are features that are available to you whenever you're choosing one of these subscriptions? And the other thing that I would say is if you are already a pro advisor serving clients and using QuickBooks Online Payroll, then you know that payroll has been reimagined. And so welcome here to today's training so that way you can learn more about that reimagined training. If you are not certified as a pro advisor, you could definitely go out and get more information by going to qbtrainingevents.com and then looking at the training that's available for being certified as a pro advisor. The additional resources that I want to mention is not only going to that training resource that I was just talking about, but also Firm of the Future. And things that they are doing that they want to share with you. So that's a really good resource, the Firm of the Future blog. And then the other thing is the Intuit Marketing Hub. So I'm a big fan of this hub because they have lots of different resources such as engagement letter templates. And so that's the thing that I hear most often is that people are really struggling with how do they create their engagement letter. And there's about 7 that you can download and use. And so some of those are going to be things that you want to engagement letter that you want to use for ongoing services or payroll services. But there's lots of different things that you can go and check out inside that marketing hub that you might not be aware of. And the other thing that I'd like to say is that we have some wonderful support staff here that are answering questions and making sure that this webinar is running smoothly. So to be kind to those people, make sure that you're just asking questions related to this particular training. So payroll training specific, thank you, please. And then I would also say, if you've got other questions, QuickBooks or other payroll questions, then you would definitely want to reach out to your support agent. There's also the test drive. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the test drive, but you can go and download, you can go play inside of the test drive and test how do the features work. And because it's in this test drive environment, it's like a playground. So you can go in there, do things, and then whenever you log out, it actually resets. And then you can go in, log in again, and start all over. So no harm there to go and play all you want. So our agenda today is to work through Module 1 and then part of Module 2. And so what we're going to cover in those 2 modules is the various subscriptions that are available and then how to get started. And then plus we're going to start running payroll. So that's going to be our agenda for today. And then there's going to be a second part to this training where we're going to go through and look more at reporting, and we're going to go through some of the advanced features and really talk about some of the things that you might need to do for clients who have more robust payroll needs. So with all of that being said, let's get started. So I am thrilled to welcome you to this training, and we're going to go through and look at the different types of clients who would benefit from QuickBooks Online Payroll, and then choosing which subscription is right for them. And so one of the benefits that we get as a pro advisor is you get access to payroll for your firm. So you will be able to, as a pro advisor, go into your books, and it located inside of your books will be your payroll subscription. That is free for you to use. The nice thing about that is you can test out the features, you can play with it, and it's free. So you can put your employees in there, you can put yourself in there, you can put your contractors in there, and you can use that payroll free of charge. So it's a nice way to get started and familiar with the product. So this course is really going to be a step-by-step guide that's going to be helping you with how to work with your clients whenever you're using payroll, and then maybe some tips on getting them started. So what pieces of details do you need from them in order to make, because we know that that really matters whenever we're setting up payroll. We want to make sure that we get those basic pieces of information properly entered. So how do you access the training? Well, if you're logged inside of your QuickBooks Online accountant dashboard, then you're going to go over to that navigation bar. You're going to select the Pro Advisor and then navigate up to training. And so whenever you select on training, you're going to see that there's a long list of training that's available to you. These things are free of charge, and you can go through there at your own pace, and you can do training, or you can join us and you can do a webinar like this and get more of a just a how to use verbally demonstration of the product. So to be able to access the payroll training, you're going to go over to the training and then scroll down to QuickBooks Online Payroll Training. And here you can see that there's 3 different modules. And so what I was sharing earlier is that we're going to cover part 1. So module 1 is going to be included, and then part of that module 2. So we're going to work through those details today. And one of the things that we're going to start with is just identifying the names of these 3 different new payroll products. So we have Core, Premium, and Elite. And so we're going to go look at these different products and what do those different subscriptions offer. You can see here that whenever you download this handout, you're going to be able to have a link that is available on the bottom of this screen, so you could go and look at this list as well. I think this is a really nice view of all of the various features, and you can compare them side by side. And this is really a nice cheat sheet on which subscription level do you need in order to be able to select the right option for your particular client. So we're going to then also look at, whenever we're comparing these 3 plans, one of the things that we know is that we can run payroll in all of them. We can run as many payroll runs as we want to. So some payroll subscriptions charge you per payroll run, but that is not the way that this platform is designed. Instead, you can run payroll weekly if you want to, and you can run it monthly if you want to. You're not penalized for more often. There is not a bigger fee. It is the same flat fee for whether or not you run it multiple times in a month. The other thing is that it's going to calculate your paycheck, your taxes due, and then help you with creating those forms. There's different options here whenever you start to pay taxes and file forms. So we'll look at that in a minute, but all of the subscription levels include being able to calculate the taxes and the forms. And then you also get a Workforce Now portal. So what that means is whenever you've got a client who really wants to be able to, or your client who really wants to be able to share with their employees access to their W-2s and their pay stubs, then you can invite them to Workforce and they can see all of their own information at any point. And that thing is the piece that I say is really, really empowering, to be able to share with your employees logins to their own portal for Workforce, so that way they can go in and edit any details about payment information. Maybe they need to change something. Maybe they get married. Maybe they have a baby. So lots of different things can happen in the lives of our employees. And they can now go in and edit and access that area by themselves. And then at the end of the year, sometimes our clients are like, hey, my employees really want that W-2 now. Well, if they log into their own workforce, then they can see that W-2 and they can access that. So we're going to talk about some of those things. And then also this is available in all 50 states. And you get payroll reports and then the ability to add garnishments and deductions and contributions with all 3 subscriptions. And then if we look at some of the price breakdown, so this is an example of what the price was at a normal standard rate. And so you can see here that there is, however, a discount if you have more than 11 employees. So if you've got additional employees, then what you can do is you can see that there are some discounts that you can pass along to those clients because they're going to be able to have employees added and pay a less per employee fee. So normal standard fee is going to be reduced by the number of employees if it's over 11, at or over 11. So when we're thinking about the 3 different subscriptions, we want to look at what are the differences in these. And whenever we're thinking about the QuickBooks Online Payroll Core subscription, this subscription is the basic payroll subscription to get started into the various reimagined payroll subscriptions. So you've got that unlimited payroll run, you've got 24-hour direct deposit, you've got the pay taxes calculated, and then you have the ability to automate the tax payments and filing forms. And then also you've got the self-service features that we're going to talk about, and then also that workforce. And so you've got even the end of year forms that are going to be part of that subscription. And then again, those garnishments. And then we're going to talk about auto payroll here in a little bit. But there's lots of different features that are just included in that core level. And then if we go to the next subscription up, it's going to be the premium level. And you get all of the core features plus some additional things that are going to be included. New hire reporting. So if you are in the premium package, then you are going to have all of those new hire reportings automated, and you can have those filed on your behalf by QuickBooks Online Payroll. So they will do that new hiring reporting for you. You can have user permission that you can set up, and then onboarding setup review. So this means that maybe you're migrating a client over from a different subscription. So you go in, you put in the historical data, then you can have somebody go through and they will review it. Your payroll expert will go through and they'll just review it to make sure that you got everything that was necessary to set up that subscription correctly. And then you have same day direct deposits. So if we think back to core, it was 24-hour, which is usually good enough for most people. But if you want same day, then you would definitely be a candidate for the premium subscription. The other thing that you get is HR Support Center. And so what this means is so many of us have become the HR resource for our clients because they don't have anybody else. And so where do we go to in order to be able to be that expert for our clients? Well, this support center has got a whole bunch of different resources and documents that you can actually read, review yourself, and get caught up on the latest information because it's kind of always changing right now. And then the other thing that you can do is you can share that article or that conversation with your client so that way they are then educated as well. The big thing, the shiny thing, is T-Sheets tracking. So you get to have a subscription that is included in your payroll package that is T-Sheets. And so if you are familiar with T-Sheets, you're going, yay, just like I am, because that's a really big deal. This is a very tight integration to be able to allow employees to track their time. And then that data is then already sitting inside of QuickBooks. So you don't have to import it, it's just there because it's integrated so tightly. And then the other thing is the automated taxes and payments and filing form. So you get a whole bunch more options whenever you're thinking about the premium setup with the automated pieces and the tax filing. So there is also a third subscription level. So you get everything that's in core, and inside of premium and that same day direct deposit. And then plus you have a couple of additional features that I want to mention. So what if you decided that you wanted to set a client up, but you didn't want to do the onboarding piece? You actually have the option inside of Elite to do a white glove onboarding service. And into it, QuickBooks Online Payroll, they would actually do the onboarding using the historical data that you provide to them. And then also you get the tax protection whenever, if there is a penalty, if there is some type of question, then you have that protection inside of the Elite program. And that's up to, I think, $25,000. So it's a pretty big deal. And then you also get Elite T-Sheets time tracking. So there's a couple of additional features that are inside of the T-Sheets Elite, which is geofencing. And so that's a big deal because if you've got employees who are out and about and then they show up at the job site, and while they're at the job site, they forget to log in. Well, what this does is it actually is going to notify them because of that geofencing that says you are now entering into a work location, clock in. So that's what the geofencing will do for you. And then you can also do some notes and photos and several different things that you want to be able to do inside that T-Sheets Elite product. And then you also have a personal HR advisor. So not only do you have the support articles that you can go and use as resources, but then you actually have an advisor that's going to be somebody who can talk you through a difficult scenario or maybe some just questions. So you have an actual live person that you can talk to. And then the multi-state filing and no additional fee. So if you are somebody who's got a client that has several locations in multiple states and needs to file in multiple states, then you would probably want to choose the Elite subscription so that way those additional filings are included in the package. The other thing that I would say is that sometimes you have clients that want their payroll subscription to be outside of QuickBooks. And so QuickBooks realizes that, and they have created what they call a standalone product. So you can still choose the core, the premium, or the elite subscriptions, but it's going to be outside of QuickBooks. So you have total privacy. If you need to make sure that you're running payroll and you don't want the other employees to see those details, then maybe you would advise somebody to go over into a standalone product so that way they can process all of the payroll without any overseers of eyeballs of people who maybe shouldn't see that data. The other thing that QuickBooks realizes is that sometimes whenever businesses are getting started, they might be keeping their books on an Excel sheet. I know, it happens. So they might be starting there, but then they want to be able to say, I need to run payroll though. And that's not something that we really want our clients to do by themselves. It's hard. It's hard to make sure that it's accurate. It's hard to make sure that you submit all the forms correctly. So you have this standalone payroll product that you can choose whichever subscription level is right for you or your client, but without the accounting piece of it. So you're just going to have just the standalone features. Pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I'm going to take you over here so that way you can see my screen and hopefully you're seeing it now. And here I've just gone over to QuickBooks Online Payroll so that way I could look at the latest pricing. So you can see here are the prices if you wanted to share with your clients, maybe if they have questions about what payroll prices are current, then you could come over here and you could show them. The other thing is you can see here's our list of all of the items that we talked about. If you had more questions about same day direct deposit, then you could actually click on that and you'd see the drop down of what are those details. So lots of options there, and then you can get additional information if you needed to. But as you can see here, you could actually just select one of these subscriptions and purchase that instead of having the accounting package included. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and launch our poll. So I'm going to give you a minute to answer the poll. So which of these features is available as part of the Premium and Elite QuickBooks Online Payroll subscription? but not part of core subscription. Okay, so hopefully everybody's had a chance to answer that poll. So I am going to count you down. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then we can see those results. And now we get to move on to the Payroll Center. So this is where we're going to be doing the action. So once we have set up a payroll client, then we have things that are going to be happening inside of QuickBooks Online, and that activity takes place in the Payroll Center. I know, hard to imagine. Payroll Center. It's where things are going to happen that are payroll related. So we're going to look at the new features that are available and where they're located. So if you think about what the Payroll Center is, it really is a one-stop shop for all of the different payroll activity that's going to take place. So we're going to look at those different tabs, and we're going to look at those different features that are available for you to be able to have access to whenever you're processing payroll. So the first place that we're going to start is with a client, and we're going to go over to that navigation bar and choose that Payroll Center, which is going to open up this window that we can see. And so if we're on the Overview tab, so we have several different tabs at the top. So if we're on the Overview tab, you can see that there's several things that are available for us to do here. So the first box is how many days until our next payroll. So in this case, we've got 14 days till the next payroll. That's just something that you can see at a glance. The next thing is do you have any to-do tasks? And this is where it's going to pop up if there's anything that needs to be authorized, e-signed, connections to banks, anything that's related for a to-do task, that is going to be in that second box. The third thing that we're going to see is all these shortcuts. So if we just want to use our Overview tab, then we can actually use these shortcuts to access several different features inside of the Payroll Center from those shortcuts. And then the fourth thing that we see is the celebration of birthdays. So it's always nice to be remembered, and our clients appreciate that, and our clients' employees appreciate that. So if you're working with a client, I'd make sure that you point this out so that way they're aware that they need to say happy birthday, or maybe give that person an hour off early. Wouldn't that be nice? But you have all of those details that you can see at that Overview section. If we move over to the next tab, that's the Employees tab. And there we can see several different things. So we've got the ability to run payroll. We also have the option to see our next payroll date that we're going to need to process payroll. And then invite to workforce. So that was that thing that I was telling you that the employees can go in and access. They can be invited directly there. And then also you can add an employee. So by clicking that, then you can put in a new employee. And then you also have details about your existing employees in that bottom section. So there you can see not only their name, but also the pay rate. So are they salary? Are they hourly? All of those things are going to be visible inside of the pay rate. The next thing that you've got is the pay method. So how does that employee prefer to be paid? And hopefully the direct deposit, that's just the easiest thing to do. And that's what most people want. But you would be able to see what their payment method is right there. And then the next thing is you've got the payroll schedule. So not everybody is going to be on the same schedule, and that's okay. You can see which schedule each employee needs to be paid. And there might be some owners that say, I want to be paid monthly. That's pretty common. And then you might have employees that want to be paid every other week or every week. So you have those details visible directly on this dashboard. And so that gives you a really nice visual and access to being able to process payroll. And then if you're thinking about where does the employee information belong and live, that is going to be inside of the employee card. So if you click on any of those employee names, it's going to open it up so that way you can start seeing and entering some details and edit them as needed. So if we come through here, the other thing that we can see on that employee level is we can choose not only to see the employee details, but we can also see the paycheck details. And we can filter that to date range. We can filter it to maybe this quarter or last payday. So there's some options there. And then where that blue hyperlink is, we know that that will take us into another screen in QuickBooks. And so what that's going to do is by clicking on that blue hyperlink where the net pay is, you'll actually be able to open that paycheck and see it. And sometimes that's necessary because you want to know, what did I pay them last time and what were their deductions, or did I get that bonus on there? I don't know. Anyway, so you could always open up that paycheck and you can see the historical information there. So whenever we're thinking about all of the features that are available inside of the various subscriptions, the next thing is choosing which one is the right subscription for our clients. So there's several things to do to be able to establish that. So we're going to think about what our clients' needs, and then we're going to think about the different subscriptions and do they have data that needs to be migrated into their new payroll subscriptions. So whenever you're working with a client, some of the things that you might think of that would be something to ask your client would be about their employees. So do they have employees that maybe have time tracking needs? Are they going to be out on location? And so it's really important for them to be able to clock in whenever they're out, so in the field. And then being able to also think about some type of direct deposit option, and then also being able to see the different subscription price points. So all of those things are factors in considering your client's needs. This is also a list that you can download. So whenever you have the handouts from today's session, you can actually use these to click over to that link, and then you can download this checklist also. So this little cheat sheet just helps you to be able to say, these are the things that I need, check them off as needed, and then you can make sure that you are ready for setting up payroll, because there are several different components to setting up payroll, and it's really, really nice if you can get everything that you need prior to the setup, so that way you can have a much smoother setup transition. And then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to say, let's get started. So by going over into that navigation bar and selecting payroll, if you do not already have a payroll subscription connected, you're going to click the button to say get started. And then at that level, based on going through your client's needs, you're going to be able to choose which payroll offering makes the most sense to them. So you can see here again, this is going to be a window that pops up whenever you are choosing the subscription, which one makes sense. So you just have one more chance to be able to say, yeah, I choose this subscription. You can always upgrade or downgrade as needed, but sometimes it's just easiest to start in the right place to begin with. And then if we're thinking about the migration of data, we have several different options. So we can enter that data manually. We can put in those paychecks. The other thing that we can do is we can just put those details in, and then with that premium subscription level, we could have our payroll expert review it to make sure that, hey, these dollars make sense, they're in the right location. And then the last thing is we could then opt to have that white glove service that Elite offers. And we can just say, this isn't our area of expertise, I'm just going to pass this piece. Or, maybe it's the holidays, you've got some things that you're busy doing, so you just want to offload that piece. Definitely an option. So once you have a subscription, then you're going to be able to get started by going through your checklist of things to do. So there's several things that are steps, because we gathered all of our data, hopefully, and we're ready for it. But there's several steps that are part of the setup. And there's this really nice wizard that's inside of QuickBooks Online Payroll. And so all three subscriptions have this wizard to help you move through the workflow. And the first thing that you're going to do is just say, let's go. And then that's going to allow you to not only choose, do you want to enter an Elite subscription, but it's also going to allow you to have that support that you possibly need, and then also move through the setup as it progresses through that checklist, that wizard list. The other thing that you can do is you can choose to have that standalone product. So if that's something that's an option that you need to make available to your client, then you can always give them the options to just use the standalone product without the accounting system. And the nice thing about if you had a client who maybe was one of those that was starting with an Excel sheet and that's where their data lived, or some type of other accounting solution, but they wanted to use QuickBooks Online Payroll, then you can always upgrade that to a payroll subscription that also has the accounting built in too. So that's a really nice feature whenever you're thinking about that payroll standalone. But if you want to know kind of like what it looks like, here's a really great idea. So everything visually looks the same. So the navigation bar looks the same. Those tabs that are in the Employee Center look the same, and Payroll Center. But the thing that is different here is you can see all of the accounting pieces are missing. So there's not a Vendor Center or Banking Center. There's none of those features. Instead, we have the payroll and all the various tabs, and then the reports that we're going to be able to see what was our payroll cost and details, and then the payroll tax center. So that's where those liability actions are going to happen. So once you reach the final stage of setup, you're going to get this nice high five that's going to say, all right, you did it. Nice job. Well done. So whenever we're thinking about going through those various pieces of the setup, the other thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to put in our employees. So we're going to need to add employees, and based on any of the 3 subscriptions, we're going to be able to add them, we're going to be able to set them up, and then we're also going to be able to invite them to Workforce. So the things that we need that are important pieces of information are going to be able to help us move through the employee setup, not just the payroll setup that we were talking about before, but now this is the employee setup, is we need to know what we're going to pay them. So if our client has delegated the payroll setup to you as the accounting professional, then you need to know what is the pay rate for that employee. And then do they have any additional deductions or garnishments? Are there anything, details that you need to enter at the time of putting in that payroll information? And then you can invite them into their Workforce. This is really a powerful tool for empowering your employees to go check details that they need on their own. And one of the things here that I'll just add is it is in most states, if not all states, I specialize in just a few, so I don't know them all, but you are legally responsible for making sure that your employees have pay stubs. So it is hypercritical to make sure that they understand that if they're getting a direct deposit, that the employer still needs to provide the employee a pay stub. And so the way to be able to do that is, one, you could print it, I guess, or you could email it to them, or you could just say, hey, go log into your own portal and you can see your pay stub. That's the best option, I think. And then whenever you add in those employees, that we know that both the premium and the elite subscription is going to submit that new hire report for us. So that's going to be something that's automated and fantastic, because it takes a to-do task off of your list. So whenever you're adding in the employee information, you're going to go over into the Payroll Center, choose the Employee tab, and then say add an employee. And the first area that you're going to start editing is the pay section. So there's 3 different pencil icons that you can see, and each of those have different pieces of information that we would need to enter in order to be able to pay this employee. But the first place that we're going to start is by putting in the employee details, such as the name, and then what withholdings do they have, and then how often are you paying them? So what's the pay schedule? And then how much are we paying that employee? And then, of course, those deductions. And then also we're going to say, how do we want to pay them? So what is their payment method going to be? And then here again, I'm just calling out that invite to Workforce, because we want to make sure that they're invited. And there's several different ways that you can do that. You can either do that from directly hitting that invite to workforce button that's on the employee dashboard, or you could actually over in the employee card, you could invite them to workforce. So you have two different ways to invite them. So just make sure that you do. So the next thing that we're going to do is make sure that they get paid. So we're going to look at the direct deposit. So connecting a bank account is going to enable us to have more functionality. So if we think about our bank account, one of the things that we need to do is to enter in the employee's bank account details. So if they tell us that they want to be paid by direct deposit, great. There is a form that you can actually download. And so you can see that it's available there. You can share that with your employee. They can attach either a check, or they can put in their details of their routing and checking account number. The other thing that you can do is if they say, hey, I'd like to save a little bit. I'd like to send maybe $25 a pay period over into a savings account. You can actually split their direct deposit into multiple accounts. So if you want to put an additional bank account in, then you would need to make sure that you have those details and the accounting and routing number for both of those. And then you could even do a paper check if you wanted to for the second piece of it. So maybe direct deposit part of it and they want the paper check for the other part of it. Don't know why they would do that, but you can. It is an option. And then there is also a really cool thing that Intuit offers, because they realize that employers want to pay employees and move on. That task is very tedious. And so employers really like direct deposit. But there are times whenever employees do not have a bank account. So employers have got this option that Intuit has provided that you can use these prepaid Visa cards. So you can actually take the paycheck and you can send all of those funds to this prepaid Visa card. And then that way that employee can use those dollars. So it's just like a paycheck, except for they can use it and they have access to those funds. It works kind of like a debit card, or they could go and just withdraw the money. So lots of different options there. And here again, this is a blue hyperlink. So whenever you download these handouts, you're going to have the access over to those hyperlinks so you can navigate there and learn more. So when we're thinking about the deadlines for payroll, so if we need to be able to submit payroll by a certain date, then we need to look at the schedule to determine what is the appropriate date for us to process payroll. So if we need to say payday is Friday, well then with a core subscription, then we need to enter it by 5 p.m. on Thursday. If we have a client that is in premium or elite, sometimes the button doesn't get pushed and employers forget to do it. Well, I would recommend that they do it the day before, if not, a couple days before. But if they forget, or if there is a scenario that they really need to do it the same day, there is an option, but you do have a deadline for that. So it's 7 a.m. PT. So you need to make sure that you look at your time zone to make sure that you are hitting that deadline. So you could make sure that you pay them on time. And then you can also see when will your account be debited. So that way you can kind of see those schedules that go along with it. One of the things that you need to do is you need to enter the employer's bank account information in order to pay the employee by direct deposit. And so that makes sense. So one of the things that you would want to do is go through that payroll setup wizard. And the last step is going to be entering in the bank information. So if we think about what needs to be entered with that bank information, then it's going to be all of your account details. And there's a couple of different ways that you have the option to enter in those details. But whenever you go through the wizard, the first thing that it's going to ask you before you can put in the employee or the employer bank account information is it wants you to verify the employer. So you're going to go through there and you're going to look at the business details, making sure that the right person is set up, the right entity, the right EIN. So those details matter. And then also the principal officer. So who is responsible for these accounts? And then the next thing that you can do is you can connect the employer's bank account. So you can put in a new bank account, and you have a couple of different options. You can either manually connect your bank account by selecting that blue hyperlink down at the bottom. Okay, that blue hyperlink is actually going to be like a direct connect. So you would put in your bank login information and then it would sync directly. If you don't have a bank that will do that, then you can just manually enter your accounting number, your routing number, and then there'll be a direct deposit and then debit to be able to verify that account. So you would just put in those details whenever it asks you to verify that. So I'm going to go ahead and demo this area of payroll. And this right here is the demo account that we're using today. So Rock Castle Construction is our client, and they've asked you to help them with their payroll. So we're going to come over here over into the payroll details, and we're going to see that we have our employees here, so we could actually edit our employees as needed. We can come through here and we can say add employee, because that was one of the sections that we were looking at. So here's the details where we could put in their name, their last name, and we can say we want to invite them to be able to see not only T-sheets, but then also be invited to their Workforce Now account right here. And that's going to allow them to enter in their own personal W-4 information. And this does qualify as having documentation of the W-4. The other thing that you're going to see here is what's the pay schedule. So if you wanted to learn more about it, how does it work, what's the timelines, you could always select that pay schedule. And then the other thing that you can see here is you could edit your scheduled date if you needed to. You can go in and make some changes. You could put in hourly dollars, you could put in any deductions, and then also how does that employee want to be paid. So all of those are part of the employee information and details. And then whenever you're thinking about connecting the bank account, you could also edit the bank account at any time by coming over into the payroll settings and scrolling down here to the bank account. So not only can you do it at the very beginning, but then you could also come over and edit as needed. Maybe you needed to connect a different bank account. Here are those three sections that I was talking about. Here's the bank account where you might want to put in some details about the new bank connection that you want to make. Here's several of our most popular banks. So maybe you have one of those. And then here's that manual option. So maybe you don't have a bank that is listed where you can connect instantly, but you can go ahead and enter your accounting number and your routing number, and within a couple of days, you're going to have that test deposit. So, you know, no big deal. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this set up and then go back over into our training. So coming back over here and looking at our next lesson. So when we're thinking about another area of payroll that we want to set up is going to be contractors. So remember whenever I was talking about the various different payroll options and the different subscriptions here, one of the things that we have as part of a payroll subscription, we're also going to be able to process payments for our contractors. And this is included inside of your QuickBooks Online payroll subscription. So this ability, this feature, but there is an additional fee for that. And there is additional setup that is required for entering in contractor details. Again, I'm a big component of wanting to make sure that employees are empowered by looking at their own details. Well, the same thing is true whenever you're thinking about contractors. So contractors can also be paid by direct deposit, and you can also put in their W-9 information. You can save those details, and that way you've got it stored in one location. So here, if you've got a core subscription, then it's going to be $4 per month to pay those contractors. So whenever you're thinking about the contractors at the $4 a month, that's going to be those core subscriptions. and it's going to be unlimited times that you want to pay them. So again, you're not penalized if you pay your contractors weekly. So there's some cases where contractors want to be paid every Friday, and they can. So you can, for $4 a month, pay them every Friday. In order to be able to access this area of QuickBooks, you're going to go over into the Contractors tab, and you're going to say Add Contractor there. And then you're going to put in all of the details for that contractor. So all of the things that you need to know to be able to pay that contractor. And then you're going to also put in their bank account information. There is an option to allow them to self-onboard. So just like with Workforce, you can allow your employees to self-onboard. The same thing is true with contractors. So maybe they don't want to give you their bank account routing and checking account number. You can actually send them an invitation and they can put in these details themselves. And then you get the ability to schedule out your direct deposits. You get the option to say how much and how often, and then which account is it drafted from. So one of the things that you would do here is you would select the correct bank account for those dollars to be posted to. And then the next piece of it is if you decided that you did not want to use the direct deposit option, you can still track your contractors inside of QuickBooks. You just won't have to pay that $4 per contractor a month fee. Instead, you could go through there and you could say, I want to pay my contractors in the contractor section of QuickBooks, but I'm going to instead use a paper check. And there's no cost to that. So there's no fee. You can just use that particular feature at no charge. So whenever you're thinking about the contractors, oftentimes, it's really hypercritical to not only pay your employees on time, but you also want to make sure that you're paying your contractors on time. So just like employees, there's deadlines to whenever you can submit that direct deposit payment, and it'll be able to hit their bank at an expected date. So you can see here that there's different deadlines for either subscription. So if you using the premium or elite subscription, then you would want to do that the same day. You can still do that the same day, but before 7 a.m. PT. Or the other option is if you're in core, then you would want to make sure that you do it by 5 p.m. PT the day before. So same rules apply, and the direct deposit is going to come out. And so you're going to pay those employees and contractors on the schedule that is associated with the subscription level that you've chosen. So we've gone through several different areas, and so I want to recap just a little bit. So from our dashboard, we can see with our client, we have on our navigation bar, our payroll center, and then we have several different tabs. We could click in directly to one of those tabs if we wanted to, like employees, and skip the overview tab, or we could go directly over into our contractors. And then here you can see that we have one contractor that is already set up. And this is our demo account. So our demo account is actually a premium subscription. So for this premium subscription, it's going to have a higher dollar per month contractor rate. And the reason for that is you're going to have additional features, just like T-sheets. So if you have contractors that need to track their time, they're going to have this ability also. So whenever you're mapping the new T-sheets experience, then what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that your contractor time is going to be importing into QuickBooks in a way that you can process that time for those contractors. And then you can see here, I've got my vendor details. If I needed to edit it at any time, I could. So it's going to pop up and it's going to tell me these are the things that I entered before. I could change them if necessary. And you can see I can choose a person or I can choose a business and then save all of those details. And then the other piece is I'm going to be able to view the payments that I have made to this contractor throughout the year. So I could filter by date range, I could filter by payment method, but these are all things that I will be able to see inside of the contractor section. And then this account, of course, is a dummy account, so it's not going to have a bank account connected to it, but you still have this write check option. So this is the thing that is a free option, that if you want to use the contractor section of payroll and write a check, you can. The other thing that you could do is you could create a bill or an expense based on some of that time that has been documented. And if we had this contractor connected to a bank account, then we could actually put in the direct deposit information and then pay them with direct deposit like we were seeing on our slides. And then if we were putting in the details ourselves, then we would probably already have all this visible, but because we said we wanted our contractor to self-onboard, they're putting in their own information. So those are all things whenever you're thinking about your contractors that you have as options. I want to also go back and say that you could actually prepare your 1099s for these contractors. So one of the reasons to use this area instead of using vendors, because I know that's something that gets asked sometimes, is why would you use contractors instead of vendors? Well, your contractors are going to be here too. So you can see, here he is, he's visible. I can still see my contractor from this side. But the difference is whenever I enable this box right here, this automatically tells QuickBooks that this is a contractor, a 1099 contractor. And so it's going to, instead of just listing that contractor here for visibility, it's going to place them over inside of the contractor center inside of payroll. So you can see them both places. And then here you can do additional things because we know that we need to pay them and possibly by direct deposit. So here again, we've got our employee information. And so we've got all of the details here that we've gone through up to this point, since we're recapping with our pay rate, whether it's hourly or salary. And then also we've got our payment method set up. So here we've got an employee that prefers to be paid by check, but then we have another one that says direct deposit, please. And then we have our payroll schedule. So I can say every Friday, or I can say every month, or I can create as many payroll schedules as desired. That is really a feature that is unlimited. And then you can see right here, here's my active status. If I wanted to see inactive, then I could actually choose inactive or all, and then I'm going to have an entire list. So maybe you have seasonal employees, you want to come through and you want to say, this employee is only going to be active for part of the year. And so I can say, not on payroll for right now. And then I can say done. And then whenever I go back over into my employee list, they're no longer visible. And why you might want to do that is because this would allow you to be able to pay the lower rate per month for months that you have less employees. But then at any time that I said, hey, I want to bring that inactive employee back, I could actually then select my inactive. I can click on that employee again, go back over into the employment status, and I can say now they are active. So very simple, easy to use. And here are those sections of the employee card that we were going through and editing. So I can select the pencil next to the data that I want to change. And then I can pull all of these details up and I can see everything that I had entered previously. So a lot of information right there at your fingertips. I'm going to go back over into our slides because now we get to run payroll. So once we have set up the payroll subscription using all of the various details that we have on our checklist, the next thing that we do is enter those employees, enter those contractors, and then we get to run our first payroll. So I know our employees are always excited about this. They like to get paid. So to describe how to run payroll is exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to talk about the various different ways to pay them. What are those payment methods? And then we're going to think about when we go to run payroll, what that experience is like. So back on that employee dashboard, this is where not only can we access the employee information, but then we can pay those employees. So we can say run payroll, and then we can go through and we can look at the details of that payroll run. We would want to first look at the bank account that the payroll is drafting from. we want to go look at the pay period because we've gone in and added payroll schedules, but maybe we accidentally skipped one and we need to like catch up, or we're off a schedule, so we need to make sure that we're correct on our pay period. So that's just kind of an eyeball view. Usually there's no edits, but you just kind of check it with your eyes and move on. And then the pay date. So when do we expect to pay those employees? And this is where you would have a warning that if you said, I want to pay employee that is next day, then that would be fine. But maybe it's after 5 p.m. and I'm in core, then it's going to tell me that I'm going to have to pay an additional fee for giving them a check that day, or I can just change my pay date. So that would probably be the thing that you would do, is just change the pay date. You can then also edit the hours worked. So if you decide that you don't want to use timesheets, then the thing that you would do is you would just go in and drop in some hours and put those details in. So that way your employee who is hourly would have a calculated paycheck. And then the next thing that you're going to be able to see is of your paycheck, you're going to have 3 different sections. And so in these 3 different sections, you're going to have details about what the employee was paid, what the employee taxes are, and what the employer taxes are. So all 3 of these sections are areas that you can access, you can view to make sure that those details are correct before you process and submit that payroll. So one of the things that you could also do is say, I want to preview that payroll. So this is actually going to give you a PDF of all of those details for all employees. So if you were running a payroll run that had multiple employees that were going to be paid for that period, then you would be able to see all of the details for that payroll run. And if for some reason maybe you are processing payroll for your client, you could send this over to them for approval, or just see it because you want to be able to know how much it was going to draft. Several different pieces of information that are available on that form. And then the other thing that you've got visible here is once you have viewed that payroll, once you have decided and determined that it is correct, then you can submit it. So that becomes payday. And then payroll is finished. And if you are doing paper checks, you could actually go through here and you can say, assign those paycheck numbers for me. That's a setting. Or you could just go ahead and plug those numbers in. And then the other option is that you could go ahead and print those pay stubs if you choose to do so. So the paycheck list, that is also something that is visible. So you could go back through at any time and you can see that whole paycheck run. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see what that experience looks like. So here I'm inside of payroll, and I'm going to go ahead and say I want to run payroll. I also have an option to do a bonus only here, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run payroll. I have different schedules set up, so I'm just going to click my every Friday. And then you can see here, oh, you might have scheduled a paycheck for that time period already. It's going to give you a warning telling you, hey, you probably don't want to do that. So that's the thing that you would want to check is which bank account is your payroll drafting from. You want to make sure that this is going to be the posting that's going to happen to the QuickBooks register. So this does not actually change whenever we set up our direct deposit draft. This does not actually edit that. Instead, what this does is this actually talks to the bank register in QuickBooks to post these liabilities. And then you can come through here and you can see, do I need to change the payroll schedule and then the pay date? So if I needed to change the pay date, I could. So I could just say, I want it to be that day instead. And then if I wanted to edit any of these details for the employee, I could come through and I could do so. I could say, oh, look, they've got a lot of overtime. Was that approved? Yes, no, maybe. And then you can come down here and you can see I've got employee taxes. Maybe I have an employee who says, ooh, I really, really need to catch up. And this is really going to be more designed for your owners. So maybe they're on salary. You can just adjust this. Maybe their state isn't quite calculated right. So you could adjust that dollar amount on the fly as needed. And then you can see here we've got the deductions. So this particular employee has an deductions added. You can edit it as needed. And then you can see the employer taxes. So here they are broken down. And then any company paid contributions, you'll be able to see those details. Say okay if you approve everything. And then you could preview that payroll. And here again, you still have the option to come through and edit as needed. So if I wanted to still at this level go through and pencil and change and even compare to last payroll run, I love that. So you can see, does that make sense? Should they have been paid that? Well, you can go and look. And then that preview payroll detail. This is that PDF that I was saying. It's really easy to take this and print this and save it if needed to. Lastly, I'll say, hey, submit that payroll. And then here, like I was saying, you could actually say autofill these payroll check numbers for me. I could print the stubs as needed, and then I can say finish payroll, and it's all done. If I come back over to my paycheck list, this is an easy way to be able to see what was the last pay date. So the default on this paycheck list is always the last pay date. So that just helps you to know what was the action that happened last. And then you can see I have all of my employees here. So maybe I say, oh, it wasn't one of those. I want to just look at that particular employee. I could just zero down and I can, again, click on that hyperlink for that net pay, and I can see all of the details here. So that's really, really helpful for being able to go back and look at employee history. I'm going to stop sharing and then come back over because we're going to move on to another section inside of our training. So auto pay and overtime calculations. So now that we've set up our payroll subscription, we've paid an employee, now we have some automation that we can start choosing. So if we come over here and we look at what is auto payroll, who is it designed for, we can think about how to use it, what are those actions that are going to be to set it up, and then what if we need to make some changes? And then ultimately, what if we decide we want to turn it off? So we have several different options whenever we're thinking about auto pay. So what is auto pay? It is the ability to pay your employees based off of historical payroll information. So I can go through and I can say, my employees are on a schedule that is all the same, and I want them to all be auto paid every single pay period without anybody looking at it and approving that payroll. So if we think about the criteria for being able to use auto payroll, the thing that we need to do is they have to have an active subscription to either the core, premium, or elite. They also must be either salaried or have default hours. They cannot be using timesheets. And then all employees must have a single pay schedule. So it's going to have a hard time knowing on auto payroll, you've got 10 different schedules set up. Auto payroll needs it to be, just one. And then you can do it after you are completely set up and you have run that first payroll. So the other thing that we have here is that we've got the ability to, the client cannot have T-Sheets accounts. So we need to not be using timesheets. And so that last bullet and second to last bullet are really the same. We just can't be using timesheets. The next thing that we have here is whenever we look at the auto payroll, we need to set it up. So in order to be able to set it up, you've got these various different options here. And you can see that the way to do it is to go and edit our payroll settings. So if we go over into our payroll settings, we're going to be able to see this auto payroll and whether or not it is active and something that we can use or not. And if we go over to the next piece, we'll be able to see some details about using auto payroll. So if we're using auto payroll, one of the things that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to share with our client some of those details. And that includes, can they make any edits as needed? And being able to understand how many days they have to be able to make those edits. So they're going to usually have 1 to 2 days to go in, make a review, make any edits before that auto payroll just goes ahead and processes. So those funds will be drafted from the bank account. Whatever schedule is set up for your subscription level, that's the same thing that's going to happen for these direct deposits. So whenever they're on auto payroll, if they're on core, then you need to have it 24 hours. If they're on premium or elite, then it can happen the same day. And then on the payday, the direct deposit employees are going to be automatically paid. And then any employees that are getting a pay.
Hey, Liz. Hold
Yes?
on. I think we lost you. Okay. I hear you now. Okay. Keep going.
Okay. Fabulous. All right. So auto payroll. I'm not really sure where I possibly dropped out. So I want to make sure that if we think about our auto payroll, the thing that we're wanting to do is we want to make sure that we've got some good communication set up. So we're going to go through and look at these default actions, and then what actions do we need to take or be aware of once we turn on auto payroll. So what it's going to do is it's going to pay future dated payroll runs based on the last historical payroll data. So if you go in and you have a payroll run that you just processed, and then you said, hey, I want to go ahead and set up the auto payroll, that is going to use that last payroll run's history in order to be able to process. Once you turn it on, you're going to get a notification that tells you, here is your schedule. So if you want to pay employees by such and such date, you need to make sure that updates are made by 5 p.m. So, all of those things are going to be subject to whichever subscription level you have, but everyone will have this little notification that comes out. And then the secondary default action that you're going to have is that payroll will process automatically. But yes, you can still go in and make edits as needed. So you can review, you could actually update, and then you could actually say, I've changed my mind. I want to, for this particular payroll run, I want to run payroll manually. So what happens if you say, I really typically have the same payroll every single month? Maybe we have salaried employees, or maybe we have hourly, but we know that they're going to be working a standard 40 hours per week. What if there is a one-time change? They take vacation, they decide that they want Friday off. You can go through and make a one-time change. And so what you would do is you'd go into that run payroll area of the payroll center, and you're going to, on that employee dashboard, you're going to say run payroll, and then you're going to say, I want to update my auto payroll. And then you can make any edits as needed, and then just say done. And that's a one-time and one and done. The other thing that you have is reoccurring changes. So maybe you want to go in and you want to say, I need to change things for this employee. Maybe maybe they were part-time and now they're full-time, or maybe their deductions or maybe they've gotten a raise. So those are things that you could go in and you can actually make reoccurring changes that will affect ongoing auto payroll. So whenever you're paying your employee manually, this is what that experience looks like, because this does sometimes happen. So you would go in, you could look at the payroll run center. So we're looking at processing the payroll here. And then we could go in and we could manually make some edits. So any changes that we need to make, we could actually do so here. And what if we decided, hey, we really are now ready for time tracking and we just want to turn off auto payroll altogether, because we cannot have timesheets and have auto payroll on because it's based on either that hourly wage or on the hourly default hours. So we could go through and we can actually turn that off. That setting can be turned off by going up to our gear icon inside of our QuickBooks Online file and then selecting the payroll settings and then unchecking the auto payroll box. And that will actually turn off our auto payroll. You might get a warning saying, hey, well, payroll's tomorrow, or we just processed payroll, so you have to wait a day, or it'll affect the next upcoming payroll run. But you'll have a screen that will give you some information about that. Overtime calculations is pretty cool. So if you've got an employee and you know that they're going to be working overtime from time to time, then the first thing that you need to do is you need to set up the hourly setting pay type for that employee. So again, you're going to go back over into that employee card. You're going to edit their the way that they are paid and add an additional pay type, which is going to be the overtime pay. And then once that is turned on, you're going to have an option to say, what is the first day of the week? And this is how it's going to calculate your payroll run. This is going to be based on the information of the setup. So you're going to go through there, and most often Sunday is going to be the first day of the week. But if not, you have the option to change that. And then based on the Fair Labor Standards Act, it's going to, inside of QuickBooks, use the overtime calculations to calculate how many hours are regular hours and how many are overtime. And so it's going to give you a warning inside of QuickBooks Online Payroll when you're in the Run Payroll screen. It's going to give you a yellow warning saying, wait, we want you to rethink how you're paying your payroll. So if I had an employee who had 50 hours that were total worked and their regular hours could only be 40, then those 10 extra hours are all going to be overtime. So we can see here what that looks like. So we have a payroll run. We've got those 50 hours that have been entered, and you have this warning that pops up and it says, hey, based on your pay schedule date and based on the rulings of your states, you need to fix this. So you have an option to just say, all right, fix it for me. And boom, QuickBooks is going to calculate the 40 hours or the regular hours, and then those additional overtimes are going to be 10. So this is all based on the setup that you enter in. And then that explain why box can give you some additional details about how is it calculated and what is part of the data entered for being able to understand how that is calculated for you. So let's move over here and talk about T-sheets. So this is really exciting, and the T-sheets integration is part of the wow with these new subscription levels. So no longer do you have T-sheets account and a payroll account, but they are now integrated as long as you have that premium or elite subscription. So they work together by doing a couple of different things. So if you're not familiar with T-sheets, let me spend a second to tell you the way that T-sheets work. So you can track your time and you can track your schedules for your employees, and then you can actually figure out real-time data to be able to say, where are those employees? What does the schedule look like for the rest of the week? Maybe some work comes in for your employees and they need to be able to add a task right now. Well, they could go to that schedule and see who's busy on Friday or today, whatever it may be. And then inside of QuickBooks, it's going to take that data and then use it for the timesheets. And so you review it and you may need to edit it, and then you approve it and you can process your payroll run. So all of those things are happening inside of QuickBooks. And so whenever you're thinking about T-sheets and QuickBooks Online, the two things that are happening there is the T-sheets has got the time tracking, And remember, it can be a standalone product or it can be integrated. And the way that it's going to be integrated is if you have a premium or elite subscription. If you have a core subscription, then your T-Sheets account is going to be a standalone product. And so you can still use it. It's just not going to have that same tight integration. But you're still going to have the features. So the features are going to be the employee schedules. You're going to be able to distribute those schedules. So employees get notifications about schedule changes. So maybe the new schedule is created every single week that can actually be distributed. And then you can track job and time activity by saying, whenever my employee clocks in, I want them to clock into a particular project or job. And so they can allocate those hours to that particular assignment. And all of that is happening on the mobile app. So there is a browser option of T-Sheets. There is an option to be able to actually have a clock in kiosk. So you would need to actually come in and be scanned in order to be able to sign in. But there is also the T-Sheets app, which is the thing that most people use. People want convenient and they want mobile and they want it now. So the app is really easy to use for our employees and even, as you can see, our vendors can track time there. So the integration, the way that it works is that time is automatically synced with QuickBooks, but it is still waiting for your approval. So you're going to go through and you're going to approve that time, and then you're going to be able to say how those dollars are going to be then allocated based on the time entry inside of T-Sheets. So you can still make those adjustments as needed, and then you have some really nice reports that are going to be based off of that time. So the way to access it with the new experience is for premium and elite subscription holders. They're going to be able to go over into time that is on our navigation bar directly located inside of QuickBooks Online. So you'll go over to time, and then you can say launch T-Sheets. And whenever you launch T-Sheets, it's going to have a couple of different things that are going to happen. So you can invite your employees to T-Sheets. So an email that's going to be sent over to them is going to allow them to onboard. And one of the steps that's going to be in that onboarding is allowing them to download that app. So download the app, sign into it, create their account, and then see the different tasks that maybe they need to clock into for certain jobs. And then if you already have an existing T-Sheets account, but now you are a core, premium, or elite user, or you're thinking ahead, what will happen is you need to actually have those accounts merged. So the T-Sheets account that is living outside of QuickBooks needs to be merged with the T-Sheets account that is paid and part of the new premium and elite subscriptions. Easy to do. You just call and they do a little merger thing. You don't lose data. It just happens on the back end. But that way you don't have two separate subscriptions that you're paying for. You just want to have one. And then the other option is that standalone. So you still can use T-Sheets as a standalone if you prefer. Whenever you are using it as a standalone, there's several different ways to go and access T-Sheets and get signed up. One of them is just to go directly inside of the Apps Center inside of QuickBooks Online and then choose T-Sheets and then get App Now. So you could go through and do all of those setup pieces. And the mapping that happens for T-Sheets, you need to have at least one employee set up, and you need to have at least one payroll item. So regular hours will do, but any type of other additional hours can be set up, and that will automatically be mapped over into T-Sheets. And then you can also be reassured that only the accountant administrators can map those payroll items. And then what happens inside of QuickBooks is then you can go back over to your payroll center and click on your overview and then approve time. So those shortcuts that we were looking at earlier, well, one of them is to just go ahead and approve time very conveniently. And then once the time is approved,
We've lost you again. Last thing I heard was once the time's approved.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right. So let me talk about that time being approved. Once it's approved, then the thing that you're going to do is you're going to be able to run payroll based on that approved time. So if you want to use your shortcuts, you can actually use your shortcuts to run your payroll. So if you have an elite subscription to Payroll, you're also going to have an elite subscription to T-Sheets. So if you have the elite T-Sheets, that's whenever you have some of those additional features like the geofencing that is going to be an option. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's have a poll. So which two QuickBooks Online payroll subscriptions include T-Sheets? All right. I'm going to go ahead and count us down so that way everybody has an opportunity to answer that poll. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so once we have set up payroll, entered employees, ran payroll, and been using it for a while, sometimes you need to void or delete a paycheck. So there's steps to be able to accomplish that. And they're pretty straightforward, but it is something that I want to review with you to make sure that you understand the difference between when should I void and when should I delete, because there are some differences there. So whenever some type of payroll mistake happens, there's a couple of restrictions. So one of the things to consider is, did you give the employee a paper check or was it a direct deposit? And has the paycheck been deposited yet, or has that direct deposit been processed yet? And if so, then you're going to have an answer that is going to be, it needs to be voided. But if it has not been processed yet, either way, then you can delete. And then if you're trying to delete a paycheck, you really need to delete first that most recent paycheck. So there's a couple of things that you need to do. And here you can see at a bullet list, what are the different right options. So deleting a paycheck, so if the check has not been cashed, if the paycheck has not cleared, if the paycheck is scheduled for a later date, those are all scenarios where you can delete the paycheck. But on the other hand, if it has cleared the bank, if it has been direct deposited, or if it was part of a prior period, then you can void it. And then paychecks is an important note. Paychecks that are in a prior year cannot be changed. So you need to make all of your changes by the end of the year, because you're not going to be able to go back and edit that year. But the thing that I want to point out is if you void a check, then that paycheck is actually going to be part of QuickBooks. But if you delete it, it is forever gone. So whenever you are choosing to delete an uncashed paycheck, you have a couple of steps that are here. So we have a couple of different options. So we're going to be able to go through and delete an uncashed paycheck. And we have the option down there in the bottom. And then you can see you have a warning here. So it asks you, are you really, really sure? Do you want to delete this paycheck? And so before you move forward, you have to say yes or no to this answer. But what about if you want to void a paycheck? Then you're going to come down to the drop down. You're going to say, I've already issued this check, and yes, it has been cashed or processed. So my only option then is to void that check. And so if you void that check, then what is going to happen is you're going to have a couple of different steps that you have to go through in order to verify that you want to void it. So the first thing is it's going to make you answer again. Have you cashed this check? Yes or no? So you're going to say yes. And then whenever it says void, it's just letting you know that there will be an adjustment because the payroll tax liabilities are going to be edited. And then whenever you void this check, you have one more opportunity to say, this will zero out the books for that particular paycheck. And are you sure that's what you want to do? And so you have to check the box. Yes, I understand that this cannot be undone. And then lastly, you can go ahead and void that check. So whenever we're thinking about some of the voiding a paycheck rules, we can see that there's a couple of things to just keep in mind. So Tax funds, if they've been applied in a different quarter, there's going to be some adjustments that need to be made. If you make those adjustments, there's a couple of different options for reversing a direct deposit. So all of these details are also part of that hyperlink down at the bottom where you can actually download this to have as your guide for whenever you are voiding or deleting a paycheck. And then if I flip over here and I look at how do I actually go through and void that paycheck, I can go ahead and show you the actions that you will take in order to void that paycheck. So if I come over here and I'm looking at my employees, I can go to my paycheck list and I can see, maybe I want to see all of my employees. I want to see all of this quarter. I could actually go through and look at this entire list. And maybe it's just this last paycheck for George. I wanted to go in and I say that I wanted to void or delete. Then I can actually choose either one. I could either opt to delete it or I could opt to void it. And then again, it's going to say, hey, if you are going to go ahead and void this, there will be an adjustment made. So if I come back over here and I look at a different employee, I can say the same thing here. So maybe I want to go ahead and just choose to delete. So I'm going to say I want to delete it, and it's saying, hey, you can't undo this action. So are you really, really sure that that's what you want to do? And you can go ahead and choose to do so. And if you delete it, it is permanently gone. If you choose to come through and maybe void a paycheck. So if you said, I really wanted to void this one, then you would be able to see that you've got a couple of rules here that says, you may need to recalculate some taxes. And it wants you to do the deleting or voiding in order of historical data. So I would need to first go in and I would need to void this paycheck before I could void these prior payroll runs. So those are just a couple of rules and things to keep in mind whenever you are voiding or deleting a paycheck. The nice thing that happens too is whenever you void that paycheck, you actually still can see it on a report. It's just going to be $0. So it's something that you can go back and you can see right here. You can see here's that adjustment that I was talking about. So total pay is just zeroed out, but the paycheck actually stays whenever you void it, and you can just see that there is an adjustment in the payment method that's made. All good news. So what are your next steps? We really went through a lot of the basics about QuickBooks Online Payroll and the new reimagined subscriptions. And the part of this training that really covered was the setup of the QuickBooks subscription and the employees, and then also those contractors, and then getting them paid. And then what are some options after paying them? One is going to be that auto payroll and the overtime calculations, plus then what do you need to do in order to void or delete a paycheck? So that's kind of the recap of today, but the next steps are there's going to be a part 2 to this training. So part 2 is going to dive a little bit deeper into the payroll tax settings, some of your adjustments, some of the preferences that you can go in and you can edit, the reports that you can pull. So what are those various different types of reports, and some just additional features. So I encourage you to be part of the second training so you can get the rest of the information. And remember, the way to access it is go to your QuickBooks Online Accountant dashboard, go over into the Pro Advisor training, and then scroll down to Payroll training. And that's where you can access today's training. And then I have this last poll here to go ahead and give you a minute to answer. Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining today. We've been together for quite a while, so I want to thank you for hanging in there and seeing the new reimagined payroll products and learn how to use them for not only yourself, because remember you get the free subscription, but then also for your clients. So I'll see you for part 2. Bye, everyone.